You don't always know, am I going to have the money to buy my books? I remember borrowing my books from the library because I didn't have the money to pay for them. And the mental that goes with that is going every single day and pretending like everything's okay when deep down inside, I have like $1.
Hi, my name is Devin Philpott, and welcome to the Refresh Podcast. Our special guest today is Deanna Rosa, and she has a very interesting viewpoint about poverty, and her mindset is really incredible. So I hope you guys enjoy that episode, and well, I'll see you guys then. Clap it up, y'all. Clap it up. Come on, get some energy. All right, there we go. So I'm here to welcome my special guest.
I'm Diana Rosa, and I am the CEO and founder of Rosa Consulting.
And my name is Devin Philpott, and I'll be your host for this podcast today. So, our first question is, how did growing up in poverty shape your early view of the world, and how has the view changed now that you've broken up that cycle?
Okay, so growing up in poverty, my early view of the world, luckily, was one that even though we didn't have a lot, it was still very positive. And that's because I had a mom that really let me know I could do anything, and it didn't really matter what little we had. So although we were stretching our dollars, I still had, this feeling of resilience and this feeling that, like someday that it was not going to always be that way. So I grew up in a home that was full of, love and support and all those things. But I will say my view of the outside world was that there was this level of, knowing that we didn't have a lot. Sometimes some shame came with that, like being, embarrassed of the type of car that we drove, or, the fact that sometimes we didn't have a car, or that we were at the store having to use food stamps and things like that. Like, people in society can make you feel a certain way. And I would say as a child growing up, I felt that way. But now I think as an adult and really like looking back on that, I now see that a lot of the things that were put on me as a child and when I was growing up are like, how can I say, like misperceptions of what people have about like people who are living in poverty. Like, that we're lazy and my mom was like one of the hardest working people, like that we don't work. I'm like, she worked and, several jobs just to make sure that, there was food on the table and all that. And while we were getting public assistance, she went to school and did those things. So I think growing up, my perception has changed, that a lot of those stereotypes and things that people put on me as a child, not true.
Like it just shaped you how you is now.
Yeah, but it has. It has shaped me to like want to help people and to also to want to squash those misperceptions. And also shaped me to want to squash the misperceptions that people have of people who live in poverty.
I'm for sure understanding that now. I really understand that. So for our second question, what lessons about resilience and survival has stayed with you from your experience living in financial hardship?
All of them. So, in some ways, I always say, I'm kind of glad in some ways that I didn't grow up with everything, because I said I can survive anything now. So I'm fortunate enough, I own a business and I don't necessarily want for anything. And I do have, money now where I didn't have it before, but I don't worry about if there comes a time when I don't have it, because I knew I grew up in a way that taught me resilience. It taught me to work hard. And I understand that anything that I want, I have to work hard for it. No one's going to hand me anything. No one's going to give me anything. And so I think that has kind of shaped, who I am now as a person, and also made me want to help the community and other people who have not, been as fortunate as me to really understand that anybody can accomplish anything.
And coming from your point, I understand like when you at a higher level, you might not know the different traits to work for what you got, because you always got it given to you. So that's the benefit of being like just not having everything, because you don't have everything. You have to work for everything you got, and just it's normal to you when you get older.
Right. And I think you appreciate it more. Like, I appreciate every single thing that I have now. And I know also that, anytime, that could be taken away. But I have no fear of it. I have no fear of it. And I thank my mom for that, who, like I said, as I grew up, never made me feel lesser than. They never made us feel like, because we didn't always have, material things. So the other thing it did too is it has made me not a materialistic person. Like I am not materialistic at all. Like I could not have a house or a car. I'll figure it out. But it is, and I'm always appreciative of that. I'm always appreciative that I'm not always thinking about, like people say, things and the things that I need to have. And it's made me, I think, a giver as well, and a philanthropist and all those things. So I think it did really shape, who I am as a person.
So it basically made you more like grateful.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And also had me pass on to my children who also, fortunately have not experienced, poverty. At least they don't remember. They experienced it, but they were too little to remember it. And, but it's made them, helped me to raise them to be like more appreciative, also not, materialistic, and understanding that every single day that they get to live and they don't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from or if the lights are going to get shut off, that's a privilege for them. And they do understand that.
How did poverty affect your physical or mental health?
And I think a lot. And I think a lot of times that people don't understand that, waking up every day, not, and, we had these dynamics, I think, that sometimes would happen in my family. Like, we knew at the beginning of the month, everything was going to be plentiful. And at the end of the month, not that we weren't going to have much. And I think, again, going back to what I said previously about how the world views us, how the world would view, like I'd have to hear people say, like if I went to the store and I bought something that just because we have food stamps, like why are they, getting cookies? Like I'm like, so what? I'm poor, so I can't have a cookie.
It's
like
like
why?
people judging you,
yeah,
yeah.
like being like really judged without really knowing. And I found it's people who have not ever lived in poverty. It is people who have not had that life experience are the ones to be the most to judge that without really understanding like what that feels like. And it is a mental strain to, wake up every day and, and not necessarily, know if I'm going to be able to pursue my dream. I never lost sight of it, but it wasn't always smooth. It wasn't always, I was always told I was going to go to college, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how that was going to happen. And I was fortunate that it did. I was fortunate, that I was able to do that to, better myself. But you could have a dream, but there could be all these barriers, to getting there. And so that, I think, did impact me. I grew up around people who were at varying levels of income, so I got to see people. I went to school with people who had a lot, who lived in mansions and whatever, and then I went to school with people in the same group who didn't have a lot. And, and it was different. It was different for me to know, like, hey, I don't have necessarily all those things. I don't necessarily have a way or a parent that can pay, for college. And so I've got to figure it out. So, but it goes back to that resilience. I learned how to be resilient. I figured it out. I filled out my applications. I figured out how I was going to get, to school. When you get to school, you don't always know, am I going to have the money to buy my books? I remember borrowing my books from the library because I didn't have the money to pay for them. And the mental that goes with that is going every single day and pretending like everything's okay when deep down inside, I have like $1, I don't have money to buy my books. I don't have, everybody's like, hey, like, let's go shopping or whatever. Well, I don't have money to go shopping, being fortunate enough to participate in things like I went on like an academic term abroad. And I don't know that the people in my group realized that towards the end, like all my money had run out. And I didn't have a parent that could send me money. So they were going on all of these excursions and things. And I was just like, no, I'll just stay behind. I really don't want to go. And I really wanted to go. I missed some great things on my academic term abroad just because because I ran out of money. And I'm counting every dime to make sure that I have enough money to get home. And, but I'm not sharing that with anyone. So, so I'm trying to have those same experiences as everyone else, but it's harder because, because I'm dealing with I don't have, and everyone around me, has plenty. So that was an experience for me.
And it's like, did you fear them like judging you if you actually told them the truth about you not going to those excursions?
Oh yeah, I did. It was embarrassing to me. I didn't want to say, hey, and maybe looking back, they wouldn't have cared. But I think when you talk about that mental aspect, like just growing up like that, that it was always hiding the fact that, how I was living and all those things and not necessarily sharing it, but particularly with people who had, more than what I had, because I guess it was a fear of like they wouldn't understand or they would look at me differently. Because I really carried myself like I had everything when I really didn't have, we didn't always have much.
What was the trip to abroad?
Africa, I did. I got to spend 3 months in Africa. I was studying. It didn't end up being my career, but I was studying to be a physician's assistant student. And I had the opportunity to go to Africa and work in the Kenyatta National Hospital for 3 months. And I went with a group of people. And, so I am, grateful that I got to, experience opportunities like that. But what people don't understand is like, for me, it wasn't just, I get to go on this trip. It's like, where am I going to, get the money to go on this trip, or in all those things that go into that can be stressful. But, but having a great, parent who said, I don't know where we're getting the money from, but you're going. And now I've, remembered that life experience for my entire life. Yeah.
So for our fourth question,
Yes.
let me scroll down to it real quick. So for our fourth question, for our third question, but part 2 of the third question, how have you worked to heal or rebuild since gaining financial stability?
I'm not so sure I had to heal from anything, but I have used my experience to understand that I am capable of not having to live in poverty. Like, I don't think I knew anything else. And then all of a sudden, I just came to the realization, like, I can, experience financial stability. But I didn't learn that until I would say, in my early 30s. Like in my early 30s, before I realized that, you know what? I don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. There's a way for me not to have to do that. But also realizing, like, hey, no one ever taught me that. Because I didn't have really people around me who were able to teach me that, you can have more than this. So I was always grateful for what little I had, but it took me in my 30s to realize, you know what, the sky's the limit. I can own a business. I can do pretty much whatever I want to do.
For our first question, how did you approach long-term planning, especially when you didn't grow up with this kind of roadmap?
The way I approached long-term planning was I had to learn. Like, I didn't know anything, about finances at all. And I think I stumbled on it by accident, like by watching some TV shows and reading books, when I realized, I was like, you know what, I can change my, as you call it, my financial trajectory. And so I dug deep into that and made a commitment that I was going to get out of debt, first of all, because I accumulated a lot of debt. And it started in college, with that first credit card, then another credit card, whatever. And then, then I get married, and he's got credit cards and I got credit cards. And now we just two big balls of debt married to each other and thinking that that's going to be our life. Like forever, we're going to be paying these credit cards off. And the more I started studying, the more I realized, I was like, I think we can get out of this debt. And the way we're going to get out of it is we got to make some sacrifices. And it took us like 5 years. But by the time we got to that 5th year and we didn't have, all the credit cards were gone, everything was gone, I began to realize that now that's when I first realized I have access to money. And I had access to money because I'm not spending it on credit cards and buying things or whatever. And it totally changed. I had to change my relationship with money. I had to change how I thought about money and understand that there's needs and wants in this world. And if I want to be able to have dollars and have money to do things, I have to make sacrifices now for later. So I kind of that's how I was able. And then understanding about investing. Like, no one in my family ever invested anything or really knew about that. So I had to learn for myself. So I learned about that myself. I learned how to do it. And was able to move forward like that. And then also, teaching that to my sons, but also teaching it to other people as I began to learn it, because I understood that there was no one to teach me that. And so I had to learn how to do it on my own, and it was. Now, the only thing I'm sad about is that I learned, like, the earlier you start with investing and saving, you know, you can get to a point in your life sooner where you have money and maybe you can retire early and do all those things. I didn't start doing it till I was like in my late 30s, and I'm always like, man, if I had known now, you know, then what I know now, that my life would be, you know, totally different. But I'm grateful to have learned about it in the time that I did, and to be able to have that deep understanding that I was able to change my life and able, you know, to change that of my kids. And for me, to make sure that poverty in my family was not going to be generational, that it was going to stop, you know, with me.
Of course. What were some sacrifices that you actually took to get out of debt?
How about, you know, living on cash? Like if we don't have the money to buy it, we're not going to buy it. If we don't have the money to buy it, we're not going to buy it. We are never using a credit card again. That was hard because we were used to, you know, going out to eat, and we were used to like instant gratification and like wanting what we wanted, and then to having to learn we can't always have what we want. Maybe we're not going to be able to take a vacation for a couple of years. We're not going to be able to buy those new shoes we want. We're not going to be able to grab everything that we want because right now we have this amount of money, and if we can't live off of this amount of money, then we can't have it. You know, feeling bad at Christmas time that we couldn't get our kids everything that they wanted. It's hard because I think we do as humans like instant gratification. Like we see something and, you know, and we work really hard and we think, oh, I work really hard, now I can go buy this thing, the new car, the new this. But I learned through that experience, save, you know, and then I can have that later, you know, save. And then I can go out to dinner anytime. Those things became less, you know, important. But it was like a 5-year sacrifice of just all the things we were used to having, but we didn't really have them because we were putting everything on a credit card and charging things and getting what we wanted and being able to have the discipline to say, we're not going to be able to have those things.
Going back to your point about mentoring and having somebody to tell you about that, like my mom and like I have different mentors like Doc. It just, they tell you different things because they had a higher age, especially my older sibling. He's 8 years older than me.
Yes.
He tells me, like, he's in his mid-20s, but he tells me things that his age that he made mistakes, so I don't make the same mistakes. It's just about that person being there to tell you.
Absolutely. And I went back and looked, and and I'll call them money mentors. I didn't have any money mentors. Because no one had ever like thought about money like that. You know, like everybody had credit card. That's how we lived. And so I just was finding it out for myself and then making a decision that I have to be a money mentor now for people so that, you know, and I love how you said that, so that they don't make the same mistakes, you know, that I made. I made a lot of mistakes, you know, when I was your age or whatever, and that I regret. And I try, but what I learned is sometimes I'll tell people, they still go do it. So I'm like, okay, you got to experience that. But no, I was there. But I don't say anything. I'll let you experience it. But, you know, but it's better to like really, I love you, listen to those mentors. So listen to your money mentors because they've been there and they know how in the long run, you know, it's going to be better. Yeah.
Of course. So for our last question, what message would you like to share with younger people who are currently growing up and probably based on your own journey?
Oh my goodness. One message? I had like 20. Okay, the first message, oh my goodness. So the first message I think I have is again, that one that I said, it's kind of like a recap of everything I said. Instant gratification. Like, you know, if you know, work, like when you're younger, you know, and I did it. So I had, you know, my little summer job. Now I did have to help pay bills with that. But whatever I had left over, I never saved it. I went to the mall and I just bought stuff. And it's because when you don't have, the minute that you get money, you feel like I want to spend this money. And so now I would change that. And I think at a very young age, I would start saving. I would make a decision very early on to never get in debt. So if you're young right now, you know, you kind of have to have, sometimes they'll say, oh, you have to have a credit. But put in your mind that I'm not going to get in debt, because it becomes a trap that you keep putting things, and then you get more credit cards and more credit cards, and then the next thing you find yourself in the predicament that I was in. And the predicament that I was in is I looked up and I had over $50,000 in credit card debt, and I couldn't tell you one single thing that I bought. And I try to give people the realization. Ask anybody, say really quickly, tell me, what did you get for Christmas last year? A lot of people go, I said, see, people spend all that money on you and you can't even remember what you got for Christmas last year. But we kill ourselves and make ourselves go into debt. So another sacrifice. I told my family, we're not buying Christmas presents anymore. I go, we're just not in a position to do it. We're not buying Christmas presents anymore. And please don't buy any Christmas presents for my kids. We're not going to do birthday presents anymore. So we do birthday cards, and I think they like getting a homemade card from me more than getting a gift from me. So make those sacrifices. The other thing is understanding that if you start young saving, and I don't mean putting it in a savings account, putting it in so remember these words: high yield checking savings account. Putting money in that when you are at the age of 20, or putting money in what they call in an IRA account when you're in your early 20s, you are guaranteed to be a millionaire, by the time you hit your 40s, as long as you're paying into that. So knowing that early on, and not, being in the trap of getting into debt and succumbing to peer pressure of all your friends who are going to be like, your shoes look a certain way and this looks a certain way, you don't have the right clothes on or whatever, kind of forces you to, spend money, but being confident enough in yourself to say, yeah, you go do that, because, in 20 years, you're not going to even remember those shoes, but I'm going to be able to buy 50 pairs of those shoes. So I would say, and not getting into that caught in that trap when you go to college. They are all lined up to give you a credit card, and it just feels like free money, and I only got to pay this minimum payment. You will never get out of it. You will never get out of it. It will take you forever to pay it down. So I would say, and pursue your dreams, and know that there is nothing that you can't accomplish, and never have anybody help define, who you are, and measure your own level of happiness too. A lot of people think that, people who grow up in the inner city or live in the inner are unhappy people. No, we're not. We were not unhappy people. I had a great childhood. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of great friends. And, but we measure happiness a lot of times on things, on how much you have and how big your house is and all of that. And it's really not about that. Find your own internal happiness. Find out, if it's making music, if it's, being a podcast person, whatever it is, dig into that and make that be what's going to make you happy. And don't worry about what anybody else thinks. And don't let your happiness be measured by money and on your status and all those things, because there's a lot of people, the people I most look up to, aren't people who have a lot of money, aren't people who have a lot of things, but there are people who have grit, there are people who help the community. Those are the people, who I look up to.
And it's like passion. You got
Yes.
like when you got passion for it, it's just like, I'm happy with this. Like, for example, I like doing photography, but I didn't have a lot of things when I started off. The passion drove me, because I know I want to do this when I get older. And it just comes to me, and I come to it and meet me at this neutral place, and just like, I'm in love with it, if that makes sense. It's like
it makes total sense, because I'm in love with what I do too. And now, if you can translate that in to that, a job, which you can, if you can translate that into how you, make money, because it's not how much money you make to help you realize wealth. You can be wealthy with just making a little bit of money, as long as you don't have any debt. Well, as long as you don't get into debt, you can do that. And then imagine being able, like this, like I see it coming out of you, like this passion. Imagine having that be your career and having what you do for the rest of your life. That's what makes me happy. But I didn't realize that until the years that I'm living in now, my later years as I got older. So being able at a young age to realize that and be able to live that the rest of your life, that's living. Yeah, that's great. Seeing you smile the way I see you smile when you even talk about it, and knowing that this is what I was put on the earth to do. And what I'm doing now is what I was put on this earth to do. But I had to realize that now in my later years, but to have realized that in my 20s or when I was a teenager, man, that'd have been great. That'd have been great.
And like most of the youth now are just like, they will look on social media a lot because my generation, I got born in 2007, but like everything after that, it just social media. They just look for social media for satisfaction.
Yes.
They don't used to go outside no more. They just social media and that's it. And I was blessed enough to actually have the opportunity to go outside. I didn't get a phone until I was like 15 years old. But it was just like, I was outside and I just found out like these different opportunities. And I hope the youth now just knows that like,
That's great advice.
yeah, just like,
yeah. When I was growing up, that's all we knew was outside. It was like go outside. We came in for lunch, go back outside. But you got to learn the world and do all those things. And you're absolutely right. There is a lot of, I think people connect differently now. Connecting through text it always amazes me how you could people be sitting like right next to each other. Y'all talk, no, we texting each other. I'm like, you're right here, like talk to each other, and I think that's really important. So I'm glad you shared that. Yeah. So I do see that there's a huge difference because we spend our life outside and everything now they tell you not to do. Yeah, we were doing all of that. Like, don't put your mouth, we were drinking from the water. It's like, I look at now and I was like, everybody's like so protective. We were out running the streets and doing all that on our bikes and, but when I remember my childhood, I remember it fondly. It was just a lot. We just had a lot of fun. And
it's like throughout the years, it just kept getting like not worse and worse, but it got more online every single year.
Yes.
Because like, I'm gonna say during the heat wave, I was surprised I even seen this. Back in the day when my dad told me they used to turn the fire hydrants, they used to unlock
they used
them.
to open the fire hydrants.
I was like, on my street, I was right on the street, I come back from work, and I just seen them kids. I was like, they probably don't have the online status, or not the online status, they probably don't got like a phone or something, but it was glad to see that because I don't see a lot of kids on my street. They must be on their phone. And I'm glad to see it because I know like, we can just be outside and enjoy each other.
All right.
After quarantine, it wasn't good.
It wasn't the same. All right. Oh, okay.
But to wrap up our podcast, it was a good episode with
Diana Rosa.